because I did try and vlog last week. I think about twice I tried to vlog. Mental health, am I right? I tried to talk about my mental health. Clearly, my brain's not like sorted yet. But then I realised just like sticking it in a vlog, just as a clip, as a brief sort of explanation, didn't really fit in. It's so difficult to be productive. I'm not usually like this, you know, I would usually just be getting on with it. And didn't really do justice to how important talking about my mental health like is and could be for other people, so I decided to scrap that and make a whole video about that. I like to think of the brain as if it were made of glass. In fact, let's consider the analogy that all organs in the body are made of glass. All different shapes and sizes, and with the thickness of the glass varying depending on how easily they can be damaged. Now, we all know organs in the human body work like a well-oiled machine, but are all controlled by the brain. The brain is made of the thinnest glass. Perhaps the glass gets a little thicker as we get older, but still remains the most fragile. Seems ironic, doesn't it? That the most delicate part of the machine powers those that are much stronger. As we move through life, the brain gets scratched. Some scratches turn into cracks, and some even break. Everyone has their own story of how they got their cracks. This is mine. Have you ever found it difficult to concentrate and never really known why? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you can recognise the people around you and you know where you are, but you don't really feel like you're quite, like, fully there? Like you're not really present? This feeling, by medical definition, is called depersonalisation. This is a disorder that lies on the anxiety spectrum and includes symptoms such as feeling like you're living in sort of a dream state, like you're watching yourself from outside your body, blurry vision, or even in some cases, looking at yourself in a mirror and not really recognising yourself. I have depersonalisation disorder, and the most terrifying part of that is I've had it for a large part of my life and just haven't realised until the past few months, so it's been chipping away at my brain subconsciously for years. So there you have it, you know, I have depersonalisation disorder. That should be the video over, right? But you can see from the timestamp that there's a lot more to this than just one simple self-diagnosis, and that's why I wanted to make this video. I've been on YouTube almost 7 years now, and yes, I do feel old saying that, but I've never really talked about mental health. And, well, that's if you don't count this video, which I made about my social anxiety back in 2017, and I would highly recommend that you don't count that video and that you don't go and watch it, because it is possibly the cringiest thing I've ever put out on the internet. So anyway, now obviously this video is to remedy the lack of conversation about mental health that has been present on my channel, but before we get into the past few months and ultimately why I wanted to make this video, like my recent revelations around my mental health, you need some context. Now, when I say that my experience throughout my childhood when it came to my interactions with others wasn't great, You best believe that's an understatement. I was always that kid who, you know, followed the rules, did all of her schoolwork to the best of her ability, went to church on a Sunday, was always polite and never even entertained the idea of doing anything remotely rebellious. This, unfortunately, was only met by years of being picked on, bullied, and overall disliked and left out for no real reason other than being myself. Hey guys, so this bit of the video was just gonna be like a series of voiceover clips, and I did have a lot of them written down. However, it just didn't feel right. I woke up today and was just like, nah, you need to do a webcam clip for this. So I was like, okay, we'll just explain it here, and I feel like it'd be easier if I just talk at you. It'll make more sense than some weird poetic ass type, you know, voiceover thing. So yeah, where was I? So yeah, in just a more of like a general sense, the sort of bullying I've experienced over my childhood essentially just was to make me feel like I didn't fit in, like there was something like subnormal about me, and just made me feel not great, obviously, as things like this do, you know. But, you know, after a few years, and by that I kind of mean, like, primary school, I'd got used to this, kind of, because in primary, I went to a, like, tiny primary school, so tiny, in fact, that it closed in 2013, with a total of 5 pupils, I think, was its final, student body. So, essentially, I was getting this kind of abuse from a very minute group of people, and I got used to having no friends, because obviously this was coming from literally everyone in my life at the time, so I had no friends, but that's fine. I'm an only child. I've got used to my own company over the years, you know, so that really wasn't that much of a problem. In my conscious mind and in my life, that is, obviously subconsciously it was starting to do a lot more damage, which we'll get into in the later parts of this video. But yeah, essentially all of my mental health problems started at primary school. And obviously going back to the not making me feel like I fit in, or, you know, making me feel not normal, not including me in social situations, that kind of a thing, obviously stemmed into my social anxiety. That was kind of the root of that, if you will. But like I said, primary school, tiny primary school, got used to it, got used to having no friends. I quite enjoyed my own company, still do to this day, which I am quite glad about, to be fair, because it means I still, like, I've always sort of maintained that sense of independence, even if it is from a place of exclusion. you know, and I mean, in my head, I'd sort of formed this bubble, of my life, which I think, looking back, was a coping mechanism to the fact that I had no friends and no social life whatsoever, because I was just excluded, like I said, by like everyone in my life. So I just kind of created this bubble of positivity for myself to sort of protect myself from the negativity that I was experiencing outside what I'd created for myself, and sort of the outside world. So in my head, I was like, right, when we go to high school, we'll be thriving. Of course, I wasn't like that. That was not the language I used at the time. But essentially, that's what I was thinking. I was like, you know, high school, it's gonna be great. We're gonna make so many new friends. All this bullying will stop, and you know, and I'll just be fine. High school, I thought, was gonna be bliss. Was gonna be paradise. Oh, how wrong I was. Essentially, all of the making me feel subnormal and the exclusion and all of that stuff that was going on in primary school and the early parts of my life went from, and also the comments calling me ugly, things like that, like, further subconsciously, well, not even really subconsciously, because in primary school I thought I was the bomb. I had no problems with my self-image or my self-esteem in primary school. I thought I was gonna be fine. And had no issues with that, but towards the end of primary school, that's when I started getting the comments saying that I wasn't attractive, that I was ugly, things like that started to build up. But that only started like at the end of primary school, and it was only like a few times. Of course, it was enough to start to chip away at my self-esteem, but not enough to like blow a massive hole in it, you know, which high school did. So going back to high school, the comments and the bullying that I got from a small amount of people, to the point where I got used to it, that I didn't really believe them. Move that to high school, where there's a lot more people saying these things, and that's when I started to believe them, because it started to sort of subconsciously register in my mind. I was like, well, if there's a larger group of people saying this, and it's not just the people you grew up with in primary school, then maybe there's some truth in it. You see how this, you see how the self-esteem and self-image was basically destroyed in high school, unfortunately. And going back to the ugly comments, year 9, this was sort of the last straw, the boulder just to knock down what was left of my built up self-esteem and self-image. In year 9, your girl was called the ugliest girl in school. Never really fully, well, I say never really fully recovered from that. I think I've only, well, it's an exaggeration if I say I've only just recovered from that, but it took me a few years to recover from that. That was, like I say, the last straw, in terms of the self-confidence and self-esteem that I built up. That was just the tipping point. Yeah, that is the story of how my self-esteem got diminished. That's something that I never fully realised the extent of the damage to until now, really. After that comment, my brain was like, right, everything anyone has ever said about you is the hard truth. But you know what? We're gonna push that to your subconscious mind, and we're just gonna carry on with life, because that's how it happens. That's probably the most damaging thing, I think, is that my brain could have done, to be fair. Instead of like allowing me to consciously deal with the issues, it was like, let's just like move that to your subconscious mind and have that be the new norm for you, even though it shouldn't have been, which is something I'm trying to fix. But again, it's difficult when it's been going on for years, like when the damage is done for years. Push your subconscious mind so you're not doing anything about it for years, and then you're finally doing something about it years later. It's a lot to recover from. It's a lot to undo. Years of damage is very difficult to undo, is basically what I'm saying. Towards the end of high school is when I'd fully just accepted everything that anyone was saying about me, and that was again when it was pushed to my subconscious mind. That's kind of when that happened, which, like I say, most damaging part of that, to be fair, is that it was in my subconscious mind and it's been chipping away at me for so long. And again, a lot of this is what has caused my social anxiety, which is something I do still struggle with to this day. And I can see that now, but I've seen that for a while. Like, this is nothing to do with my depersonalization, like the social anxiety bit. However, at the same time, looking back now, I can see how it has stemmed into my depersonalization, and how, because depersonalization fundamentally is a coping mechanism. It's something where the brain disassociates from a stressful situation or something that could necessarily trigger past trauma, or past stress, or, you know, past damage. It decides to dissociate from that to try and keep the person safe. But in terms of my brain, it does it at times where I'm not even stressed, where it's like it's a normal situation and I'll just like boop. So, you know, it's, and again, we will get to that because that's not what this bit of the video is about. But yeah, I just thought that I'd hop in here to explain the context, because it's, yeah. So yeah, there's your context. I was bullied as a child, and my subconscious self-esteem damage has been chipping away at me for years and has stemmed from that. So without further ado, let's get on with the rest of the video. (2018). Where do I start with this train wreck of a year? Now, I'm gonna try and be detailed enough so I get my point across and it's clear how this links to my mental health story, but vague enough in order to protect the identities and circumstances of the people involved and everything that happened, because I don't want people from my past coming for me. So that's how we're gonna try and approach this. Wish me luck. So, 2018, this year, I was in lower sixth. At the beginning, like at the end of 2017, I'd met someone who still remains one of my best friends to this day. He's great. Shout out to Andy, you're brilliant. But as I said, I also had this group of friends that I'd carried over from high school, who I thought at the time were going to be people who were going to be in my life forever. Like, we were solid, you know. I finally had that sense of solidarity and felt supported and just happy with my social life situation for once in my life. So I was comfortable, I was happy, and I was excited to introduce this new friend that I'd made to this group of friends that I already had. However, through a series of circumstances that I don't want to go into that much, like I said, to protect the people involved, essentially all of those people, in one way or another, turned out to be either jealous, snakes, spineless, or a combination of either of those, or all three, really. And you can't forget the manipulation that was also involved. So the solidarity that I had with this group of people who I thought was going to be in my life forever, 2018 took that and said, you know what, let's just chuck that out of the window, have a fun year, yeah. So essentially, I was friendless again going into upper sixth, because my friend that I'd met at the end of 2017 was in the year above me, so he'd gone to uni, and I was back alone once more, like exactly how I was in primary school. Now, again, like I said in the previous clip, in the context chapter, I was fine being on my own, and to be fair, looking back, being on my own and not having many friends actually did me some good, because I was able to just really focus on my work. I spent most of my free period, like all of my free periods, in the library. I mean, I was still part of some extracurricular stuff, so I was actually quite contented with my life in 2019, off the back of what was probably the most stressful year of my life. But like I said, just like primary school, consciously, I was absolutely fine with being on my own, because I, you know, I'd been through it before and survived it, and again, was used to my own company, being an only child, and I mean, I'd still keep quite regular contact with the friend that I'd made, who, like I said, still remains one of my best friends to this day. So it wasn't quite the same experience that it was in primary school, but at the same time, I'm rambling at this point, but the point is, 2018, through the course of a year, took the finally established sense of solidarity and support that I had with these friends, who, like I said, thought was going to be in my life forever, chucked it out the window, and therefore subconsciously did even more damage. Now, I know I haven't really talked about how the subconscious damage necessarily links into the depersonalisation or anything like that, so before we get into that, Let's review. So, we have a combination of childhood bullying, resulting in feelings of my personality being unjustified, as well as demolishing my self-esteem, plus a year that reintroduced / concreted those feelings later in my life. So what does that equal? A subconscious mind that traps my real personality in a cage and tricks me into thinking that having no self-esteem and not acknowledging anything as reality is normal. Sounds scary? Yeah, that's because it is. Especially when you realise that it's not normal and that it's slowly been draining you until you're like a shell of a human. Now, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I didn't realise what was going on. Like I said, I thought this was normal, and it's taken me until the past few months to realise that it's not normal, and I finally had the chance to try and do something about it. And the next part of this video is the story of how I realised that something was wrong. Over the course of 2019, I started to recognise odd behaviours or things that I was saying that in hindsight didn't seem like me, like I wasn't being true to myself. And when I say hindsight, often that was immediately after I'd do something or say something. Now at that time I was focusing on my A-levels, so I just tended to brush it off and put it all down to stress. However, since I moved to uni, and especially since the start of this year, this only got worse. Now, a couple of things I should mention are that, one, because of the bullying that I've experienced that makes me feel like I'm not normal, I tend to subconsciously adapt other people's traits that my brain perceives as what makes that person confident. And two, I've been experiencing a lot of imposter syndrome in terms of my uni work and the other people in my class. So obviously both of those don't help. By the time we got to March, I quite honestly just didn't feel like I was living. Like I said before, this condition, when it gets to an extreme stage, you just feel like a shell of a human, and that is the point that I'd reached by the time we got to March, in that, I just never felt present at all. It was that constant dream state that I mentioned right at the beginning of this video, and because of that I was finding it extremely difficult to concentrate on my uni work, and in addition my creativity was completely blocked, which obviously fed into the difficulty to concentrate. Now, because it had reached this extreme stage, the depersonalization had started to shift from my subconscious mind to my conscious mind. And that's what made me finally realise that something was wrong. Now, I'd heard of depersonalisation before, and been able to relate to some of the symptoms, but because, especially at the extreme stage, one of the main symptoms is that, you kind of just feel numb to life. And because of this, I never was able to acknowledge the possibility that having this disorder could be my reality. And of course, as soon as I reached that self-diagnosis is when we went into lockdown. Which leads me on to how I've been trying to cope with my depersonalization in lockdown now that I'm aware of it. Hey guys, this is one of those days where yesterday I was making progress and was feeling like myself and could see me becoming the person that I know I am. And it was a really good day of me being grounded in myself. And now today, I've got that heaviness in the back of my head again, and I can't quite focus on things. I have no motivation, and it's so frustrating because the good days like yesterday give me so much hope, and then I just fall back into this again, and it's like, is this gonna be how my life is for the foreseeable? Just fluctuating in and out of confidence and on motivation. It's just gonna be the cycle that I'm in for the rest of my life, just one day being confident and feeling like myself, and then the next day being just feeling like an empty shell. It's definitely frustrating, and I'm trying to keep positive because I know I can get through this. It's just very uncertain right now. So it's definitely a struggle. Hey guys, welcome back to Anna Has Intermittent Anxiety on a alternating daily basis. I have yet to actually start making this video. I'm still just in the process of finding how I want to edit it, kind of what format, because I've gone through several different formats of how I want to structure this video, and I think I've sort of landed on a definite option and a definite sort of route that I'm going to take with it. But of course, with the nature of making a video about your mental health, you have to take into account the fact that you're going to have low days, especially in the sort of stage that I am, which is very sort of uncertain and rocky, as I've sort of found out through the past few weeks. I mean, that could just partially be lockdown, because obviously that brings its own bouts of anxiety, but a couple of days ago I had a really low day where I just felt really heavy, like my brain just felt really my head just felt really heavy, and I had no motivation to do anything, and it was quite scary, as this whole experience is, and I'm sure I will have said that at some point, but you know, this whole experience is very, very scary, coming to terms with something that has been going on subconsciously for years and years and years, and realising the damage that that's had is really, really scary, especially as you come out of that and still have to be tackling life struggles. Yeah, this isn't fun. This going back and forth constantly, like every other day, from being okay and confident and feeling grounded to being depersonalized and really anxious and just lost mentally, is not fun. It's scary, it's frustrating. I just have to sort of keep hoping that things get better. How quickly that'll happen, I don't know, but I just hope that I'm able to stay grounded for I just hope that the ratio of me staying grounded compared to being depersonalized and anxious and lost with no motivation leans more towards me being grounded most of the time, because obviously that's the ideal, and you know, I don't want to keep living like this. Yeah, I'm gonna try and watch some Netflix or something, listen to some music. I've been looking up on the internet a lot about how to help depersonalisation, and that sort of condition on the anxiety spectrum, and how to sort of keep yourself grounded. So I'm trying to take those tips into account. A lot of it's just keep your mind busy, distract yourself kind of things, and sort of kind of don't overreact about if you're having a low day or whatever, which is definitely the biggest challenge at the moment. As you can see, it has been far from easy, and every day remains a struggle. Now, something I want to stress here is that to say that I'm fully coping and that I've fully recovered would be the biggest lie I've ever told. I am far from there. I am far from where I'm meant to be. Throughout editing this video, there have been way too many moments where I've been editing the video, I've been watching myself talk, and haven't recognised that it's me. My brain thinks it's someone else. And no matter how much I'm like, no, that's me, come on, let's ground ourselves here, that is me talking, my brain refuses to listen. The past 2 or 3 years have been a blur. Although I have achieved so much, I can't consciously acknowledge those achievements as reality, which is something I'm trying to work through. Another thing that comes with depersonalization is a difficulty to attach emotions to memories, which as of recently has been something that I have very prominently been experiencing. And like a lot of things with this disorder, I can recognize that I've experienced that for a long time. Although I am far from there, like I said, I am determined that one day I will, and hopefully I will be able to one day look back at this video and be able to say that I made it. This journey is far longer than I ever expected that it would be, but like I say, I am determined that one day I will reach the end. One of the main things I've been doing to attempt to cope is going on walks while listening to music. Obviously, lockdown has kind of encouraged that, so I suppose that's been one good thing that has come out of this whole crazy pandemic lockdown situation. And especially the music aspect is something that I found that really, really helps. I've always been someone who tends to immerse herself in music, so that's probably why it helps a lot to listen to a familiar song, and especially to kind of sing the lyrics in my head. Coping mechanisms when it comes to depersonalization, as I said previously, is mainly to do with keeping your brain busy. As long as it doesn't have the opportunity to become idle and therefore detach from itself, you are more likely to stay grounded. Although saying that, there is still so much I do not understand about this disorder, and as I've alluded to, and well, not really alluded to, as I've sort of explicitly said, every day remains a struggle at the moment. I wake up most days and don't feel like myself. I still feel like I'm living in a dream state, and this partially I am blaming lockdown, because of course for everyone, time has just sort of blurred together. It's not the distinctive sort of system that it used to be. Days just kind of blur together, but yeah, there is still so much I don't know, and that terrifies me, and it's frustrating because I just want to feel like myself. I know what my personality is. I can feel it. I know that it's there. It's just trying to unlock that cage and let it out is the biggest struggle I've ever been through in my life. But as I've said, I'm staying determined, and I know that one day I will find the right key to set my personality free. Wow, I'm rhyming now. This is great.